So today there will be some new symbols. I also try to use the beta version of HyDraw 2021. Last webinar last week, I've been showing some new features in comparison with the HyDraw 2020. So today I keep using, and in the future I will use only HyDraw 2021 because it will be the newer version that is coming shortly. Hopefully, I'm not encountering any issue during the presentation. My task today is build a complete diagram with various complexities. So I will make a small power unit with a sectional valve assembly. I have never made a sectional valve symbols during the past webinar, so today I'll show you how to build using some custom building blocks I have. Since this is a generic demonstration of HydroCAD, let me introduce a bit the environment. So HydroCAD is built around an AutoCAD OEM engine, and we have all the standard AutoCAD commands that you find in AutoCAD environment, but we have a lot of items, a lot of functionality developed specifically for making hydraulic diagrams. I start with placing a title block. So I just insert an A3, and later we'll see if it fits. Otherwise, we switch to an A2. And we can fill in information by using the edit title block. And in this case, we can type in all the, so this dialog will list all the attributes for the title block. So that's our webinar, and created by myself. Okay, this will not be enough, so let me just immediately switch to an A. So on the left side, we have a big library of symbols. In my library, I have a lot of different libraries. I have an Italian library. I have a German library. It is possible really to customize and create different libraries from scratch, or create child libraries with only the symbols that you frequently use. This can be done through another software that is called the Hydra Library Manager, which is part of the setup. Let me go back to the standard hydraulic symbols. The library is including an up-to-date library, has about 19,000 symbols, which is a huge number. So we can just find symbol by description. Let's say I need a pump. I want a variable pump with low sense, nothing special, just I take this pump. With a double click, you place a symbol in the drawing. Then let me search for a motor pump adapter, a coupling set. Let me take this one. I want a bell housing. And then I want an electric motor. Any geometry is an AutoCAD block, so if you want, you can just do an edit block in place. And in this case, maybe we can just trim some entities if we want to pay attention to cosmetic. In this case, I'm using standard AutoCAD commands. On the top right, I'll answer to the question. I see one question. I do save changes and save. There is a question asking where I took the title block. So basically, the title block is placed by using this command, insert title block. With insert title block, you can select the size. I'm using a metric template, so I am taking, I'm finding just a list of a metric. In Imperial, you will find a list of Imperial. The configuration for title block can be done here. Let me highlight. Just by using the Hydra options, or you can click on this small arrow that you find here. This will open the Hydra options. which are slightly different for the 2021 version, but the information are the same. So in this case, this is the path where I have the templates, and those are the different size for the template. This requires really small changes. You can customize it. And the last week, we had a webinar explaining how to create a title block. So that webinar covered all the topic for title block creation. I have made this a small group of items, so let me just move the balloons. As you see, all the balloons are following the item ID. You can switch them on and off. Now I want to just represent a reservoir. So in this case, I'm just sketching with AutoCAD commands. Drafting menu, I want to make a rectangle. That is my reservoir. You can use all the AutoCAD interface, so you can change colors, layers, line styles, and whatever it is. Let's say that I need some fit on my reservoir. And I can just use the match properties to apply the same geometry, same color and style to the entities. Of course, this is not a symbol, but we can turn it into a symbol in HyDraw CAD. So to make a symbol on the fly in the drawing, we can just go to the System tab and click the Convert to HyDraw command. We can define which component type we want, and in our case, it is the reservoir. We want to select the entities, so the entities are just these ones. We press Enter for confirmation, and now in the command line, we see that we need to specify the insertion point. Any point will be okay. Feel free to select the point that is more convenient. I selected top left and click OK. And now, I'm sorry, that didn't work. Reservoir. Maybe we find, okay, yes. And now this is the symbol I have made on the fly. So now I have a balloon, the insertion point, and if you want, on the right, you can fill in the information. So like model data, model code, description reservoir. Let's say the model code is West Reservoir 123. For each item, you have the possibility to define the model code. So for electric motor, bell housing, and so on. For instance, in this case, we define a pump information. But sometimes you already know what you're looking for. So instead of looking for a symbol directly in the library, you want to find the component itself. So let's say that we need a filter going out of the pump and going to our system. So instead of searching for symbol, we can go into the more search option. So the more search option will have two options available here. And let me change color. So we can search in the online, on the local database or on the online library, Fluid Power Tools. Now I want to search just for HIDAC. I want to search a filter. The type is just a filter, which is rated, let's say, 30 liters per minute. So we can type 30 and click search. So now HydroCAD will find online all the filters belonging to HIDAC, and there are a lot. And let's say that I want DFN inline filter. This is fine. I just double click and place my filter in the drawing. As you can see, to this filter, we have a lot of different model codes available. We just take the 40 size and insert and place it in the drawing. When you place a symbol, if you look at the command line, you can also directly flip or rotate on the fly. But even if you place it as is, in the drawing, then with a right click, you will be able to flip it vertically or horizontally. That's it. I want to connect my P line with the inlet. And to make a connection, we just select the pressure line from 2. And now I want to search something else. So I go back to the search. And now I want to search for a relief valve. And maybe in this case, I want a DBD percent 10K, 10, Bosch Rexroth DBD. And I want the 10K. When you find something in Fluid Power Tools, with a right click, you can view the datasheet. And in this case, Hydra will open the datasheet that is linked to the component. You can verify if that's the component that fits your need. And then we can just double click and place the symbol in the drawing. So let's place it here. We want to rotate it to the right. And we can specify a setting. So let's say that the setting, always by using the information on the right, our setting is maybe 225 bar. And we can move the setting just next to our spring. Now we want to make I want to select a check valve. So in this case, I want an HyDraC RV10A check valve. And I double click and place it here. And let me make some connection lines. So let's say that my connection line is going from out to the inlet of the valve. Then it is going from the check valve to the relief valve. And then I want a tank line going from the relief valve down to the reservoir. If you move the symbol, the connection will not break. And now we want to put a sectional valve assembly here to be connected to our pump. And the sectional valve will have a load sense that will go to the pump. We want a suction filter. So let's close the search. And I go back to my filter and strainer. Well, let me go directly to the filter strainer, and let me place a suction filter here. Let's say that the drain is done directly here. And then I will have the load sense coming from the sectional valve. Let me save my diagram. As you can see, the drawing file is a DWG, native DWG, AutoCAD 2018, and you can also save in previous versions of AutoCAD file. Desktop, and that's our webinar demo. Now I want to build a new diagram. So in this example, in this exercise, I have in my library a library called custom building blocks. If you want to install in your system, you will find it under this website. It is called fluidpower.it. And HyDraw CAD building blocks. And here you find a custom building blocks library. You can install. There are instructions, and I will be able to support you if you struggle with setup. I'll show you how to use this in HyDraw CAD. So I want to build a sectional valve assembly for Have symbols. So in this new version of HyDraw CAD, we have a new environment called Build Symbol. So when you click Build Symbol, HyDraw CAD will enter in a new environment. It is loading a specific tool on the top with the elements that help with the symbol creation, and on the right we have the ISO building blocks. I don't need now really the ISO building blocks because I want to use my custom building blocks, which are a part of my library. So in the custom building blocks, I will find some sectional valves. I want to have a sectional valve, D7702. I want an open center module. So I double click and place my element here. And let's say that I need a pressure reducing valve here, so I can select, and here I want the reducing valve. This is technically a dynamic block, and the next webinar next week will explain how to handle, how to use dynamic blocks into HyDraw CAD. So today I show you how to really use dynamic blocks to build a symbol, but next week we will understand how to make custom dynamic blocks. I go to my working section and I double click and place a working section. Let's say that my working section has a pressure compensator. I need electroproportional actuation. I can change the spool. Let's say I need H spool. I need a load sense relief valve. And I need also auxiliary block, let's say with A and B, and it's anti-cavitation and relief valve. Let's say that I need 3 of these kind of items, so I can just use AutoCAD commands, select, right click, copy selection, and you just click, 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 and enter. I need an end plate, so I go back and go to my end plate and double click and place my end plate. Not the right position. Also, the end plate are configurable. In this case, there are different options all related to the Have catalog. When you are done with the configuration, I always recommend to explode all, because I'm going to create one symbol only. I don't need anymore this dynamic intelligence. So you select and type explode. This will bring just native entities. Also, in these building blocks, since we are using auxiliary elements, I don't need this A and B port here, so I just delete them. You can leave them, but just for cleanliness, I prefer not to have this in my. So A and B, and also this box, which were the position for configurable items, I can remove them. Now I can change the insertion point of the symbol. So by clicking insertion point, I can go and say that's my P port. So this will be the insertion point of my symbol. I am done now with my symbol. So what I can do is just save changes. When you save changes, Hydra will create on the fly a symbol that is ready to be placed in your working document. This is a much smoother behavior compared to the previous version of HydroCAD. So now, in the past, when you created a symbol, you had to decide either you wanted to have in the library or use it. It was a bit of confusion. Now, if you want to make a symbol, it means that you need it. So you place it in the drawing. And later you can decide if you want to add it to your library if it is needed. So now we have our sectional valve assembly, and which we can put a model code. Let's say vast sectional valve 1. Now I want to connect the P line with the pressure and also the load sense, so we go to the load sense. So to make a connection lines, we have automatic connect and also manual connect. Let me switch the manual connect. Manual connect allows you a better control on where you want the connection line to end up. So I just select the pressure line and I start my connection from the P port and want to bend my connection this way. And then I want my tank line going from the reservoir up to here. I just forgot to remove the plug on the LS. It can be done just by doing the block editor. Let me do a block editor in place. I remove my plug and save changes. Now I can connect my load sense signal to the pump load sense. To change the position of connection line, you can use the stretch command. So stretch allows you to make any change to the position of connection lines. Like in this case, I want to make this connection straight. Automatically, it will make jumpers and dots where they are needed. Let me move the filter down a bit. M for move, and I do a vertical change. And let's say that I don't want to connect directly the load sense to the pump. I want to create a manifold here, and the load sense will be part of a port in the manifold, and then we'll go to the pump. So let me move the load sense slightly here. So I make this change. I make again this port. Let's make it here. And this is good. I want an envelope that is crossing these connection lines. So when you make an envelope, and when the envelope is crossing connection line, automatically the envelope will break into external ports. So now I can stretch the block just to fit on top of the reservoir. This will be my P port. This one will be my tank port. And this one will be my LS side reservoir pump. And this is my LS side sectional valve. And that's my P1. And that's it. In this case, I made the reservoir overlap. You can just move it down if you want to not to see lines overlapping, or you can trim the line of the reservoir as you prefer. This is just pure AutoCAD functionalities. Now we want to define size for our external ports. So let's say that our P port is rated 30 liters per minute. So the design requirement that we have here is the right place where you want to store the information for the project you are working on. So this is the place where you want to say this is rated 250 bar maximum and 30 liters per minute. All these parameters will be needed, will be helpful when you want to select the size of your port. So when you just type in a flow rate, like 30, it's going to 1/4, 40 is going to 1/2, 50 will be 3/4, and so on. And you can define the values for pressure line and return line so that automatically Hydra will recommend you what is the size for the port, for the external port, depending on different port types. So let's say that the G 3/4 BSP is okay. And now I want to copy these sides to our tank port and also to the P1. Enter. And I want to copy all the information. They all become 3/4. LS, let's say that this is a 1/4 BSP, like the other LS. Let's say that we need a test point in our system. So we can just go to the external port library, which is here. We want a MP test point. The port type is a BSP port, G1/4, and we can double click and place our test point. Let's say that we want it here. And we can connect to our pressure line. We may also have another port called pressure transducer. Let's say we need a pressure switch here, which we can connect. And of course, we can go into the library and find a pressure switch. So let me go to my hydraulic symbols and go to the gauge switch, pressure switch, and let me take just this one. So we can just do the flip, F for flip, and H for flip horizontal, and that will make the flip on the other side. And connect it. We can just reduce a bit our diagram. We can stretch the envelope. Remember, F8 will turn ortho on, so in this case, it's better to have only orthogonal movements. And this is okay. I want to move this valve slightly here. Also, this one I want to move down. And let's say that we need cylinders and maybe an hydraulic motor on top of our sectional valve. So we search for a motor, hydraulic motor, of landing gear, and we need this one here, and maybe we rotate it to the right. And we can connect. Now let me switch back to auto connect. I want to make a working connection from A to the motor and from B to the motor. Let me move this to the right. And if you use the stretch, you can stretch this to make it vertically. I want a cylinder, double acting, double click and place my cylinder here and copy. Then we can make a connection line from A to cylinder and B to rod side and so on. If you don't need some items in a part list, you can just select and uncheck. Check this, extrude from part list. Automatically, all the balloons for those items will disappear. Let's say that we need a drain port on the manifold for the motor. Let's say that this is a 3x8 BSP, and we want to put it here. And we connect the drain line maybe to the tank instead of have a separate line. And we want to connect the drain to the drain. If you don't want to have a connection line going through, like in this case, if you don't want to have longer segments of lines, you can just add the jumping reference. So to add the jumping reference, you must have a line segment. Let me make just a horizontal segment here and the vertical segment here. Jumping reference here. This is named drain, and the destination sheet is the same page one. And also I add a jumping reference with the same label DR and the same destination sheet. So for Hydra, these are connected. In fact, when you have a jumping reference, with a right click, you can find the jumping reference. So it will go directly to the other jumping reference. For a large diagram, this can be handy because you can understand where these items are connected. I also see the drain tank here. And again, we could make other jumping reference, or we can go directly to the tank from the sectional valve. Let's say that this is our configuration. And as additional items for our diagram, we may need site level gauge. So let's go to the gauge. Let's say we need a thermometer. And maybe we also describe the line entering into the reservoir. And inside the reservoir and power unit elements, you find a lot of power unit elements. So like a reservoir breather or breather, like this one more. That's breather and filling cap. Okay, our drawing is almost ready. Now I want to, at the end, make a part list, make a part list, and plot it. In order to make a correct part list for my diagram, I want to control the item IDs. So you can just manually renumber all items. When you select an item, you can see on the top right here that you have the item ID. So you can just directly change it. If you don't like the numbering, you double click and change the item ID and it is controlled. But for large diagram, really it is not handy to manually change all the item IDs. We can go to the System tab and run the item ID command. Item ID command always work on a selection. So let me select only the power unit, not the manifold, only the power unit elements. Press enter for confirmation and those items start with 100 and press enter. Now I select only the manifold with the same command and I select only the items belonging to the manifold plus the pressure switch, enter, and these are my 200 items. And I see that the balloon for the manifold is going here, so let me move it here. If you don't like the balloon, you can change it manually. So let's say that the manifold, I want to use a hexagon. So this is changing the balloon just for some particular items. The sectional valve, let's say that it is item 300. So now I just manually change it into 300. Now I want to make a part list of my system. So I want to say part list for all my system. Press enter for confirmation. And now, as you can see, we have, you can create a lot of custom part list format. I'm just using my HyDraw default one and click next. And this is a preview of my part list. Whenever you find empty spaces, you can just type in model code, manufacturer, whatever you need, like maybe the electric motor is Siemens, and the coupling set is maybe KTR. Also, the bell housing is KTR, and you may have the exact model code taken from the configurator of KTR. Suction strainer is maybe MP Filtri. The variable pump is maybe Parker. The manifold is Vest, and so on. Anything you type here, if you click update, this information will flow into the corresponding symbol into the diagram. You can export that part in Excel. Not doing that, not required. I want to place it into the drawing. Insert from here to here. And that is my part list. If you need to customize your part list, then what you can do is you can just go here and say open. It will go directly the part list. See, you can change, you can define your part list format, the default one that you want to use, and you can create more. As you can see in this part of the software, you have a lot of customization possible. You can create a hose assembly list format, port list format, solenoid actuation chart format, net list, design note list, and connector list. Just to show you the port list, ports on the manifold, enter, next, and I can place my port list here. That's my port list only for my manifold. It is also possible to manage accessories linked to component. So let's say that this port, maybe instead of a 3x4, it's a flange. Instead of a G, let's say it's a SA flange, 3x4 code 62, it's fine. And we need a flange as an accessory. So we can click add new, and we can say we need a bolt kit. And as you can see, we have a new balloon called P1 that is an accessory. Accessories can be manually defined here. So let's say this is bolt kit 1. Most families bolt kit. And the description is Flange bolt kit. And the manufacturer is maybe Parker. You can also directly save accessory to the library. So if you click save, okay, next time you can retrieve the accessory directly from this interface. You can click select from library, go into the accessory and search, and you will find the bolt kit 1. And you can add another one. I don't need now, but again, the idea is when you type in something, it makes sense to save in the library so that later you can retrieve much easier in the drawing. When we make a part list, so let me recreate the part, but before doing that, let's say that I'm not okay with this valve. I need a different brand because maybe Hydra has not this valve available on stock. So I can select from library. And by default, select from library will load the same family, but now I don't want a similar family. I want maybe a Sun Hydraulics check valve. And I can click search. So now HydroCAD is looking for the same symbol, all the check valve from Sun Hydraulics, and I can just click on, let me just sort by flow rate. This one, say XPA. You can view the datasheet. Looks good. T162A cavity, fine. Okay. So now this component is changing from Hydra to Sun Hydraulics. And here it is. Of course, this change will have impact in the part list. So now the part list requires an update. To update the part list, you select, right click, and update part list. And now this is changing the model code. As you can see, the accessory is not listed in the part list. So the part list is always created based on the selection of items you want. So if you add further items later on, you must recreate the part list. So now I'm going to recreate my part list for everything, including accessories. And now I will find also the bolt kit P1, insert. And now bolt kit is part of my accessory. If you don't like the ID of the accessory called P-1, of course, you have manual control on the item ID. You can change it and name it as you want. But you can control the item IDs just directly in the Hydra options. Hydra options are always available using the small arrow in each menu. In this case, I'm using the ID part. And as you can see, there is an option called sub-item of component. So if you don't like accessory to take the prefix of the father, then you can just uncheck it. So the accessory will take a generic number like all the other components. Now that I've changed the part number, as you can see, part list requires an update part list, and now I have a new item ID in the part list. My drawing looks good. Let me just plot it. I go to my template A2 and I do a right click, plot. I want to plot with colors, with line color style preview. So with line color, I keep the colors of the connection line. So this helps readability in a PDF. And I can just plot it and save into my desktop or whichever folder. And this is the result of my drawing. In addition, if I have a data sheet linked to components, and for instance, for this filter, as you can see here, when you select the filter, there will be a datasheet down here on the right. And same will happen with a sun hydraulics valve. There is a datasheet. Or with a relief valve, there is a datasheet, and so on. So if each item is linked to a datasheet, it is possible to collect all the datasheet from the system. So by using the docs command, we select all the diagram and enter. Now HydroCAD is asking which datasheet I need, maybe for the components, for the external ports, accessories, system accessory, and you can select which category of items you want to take a datasheet from, and we click next. Now it is finding only these 3 datasheets, select and click OK. And now I can save to my design folder. Let's say that I create a new folder called webinar, and I download all the datasheet there. So with this command, HydroCAD is taking the datasheet. If they are on the internet, it will download. If they are on a local network, it will just copy those files and bring into our design folder. So if I go to my design folder, called webinar, now I will find the datasheet, the filter. I find the Rexor TBDS. And for sun hydraulics, we find the hyperlink, which is opening on. Okay, this is opening on the second screen. I'm sorry, this is, here it is. And this is the datasheet downloaded from Sun website.